Welcome to the Peace of Living podcast. We're your hosts, Allison
and Jason.
And we're really happy to be joining you this week as we talk about another gospel topic that we hope will make your lives better, inspire you, bring you closer to Christ, all of the above. And Jason actually came up with the topic for today, and I have to say, I'm ashamed to admit this, but I wasn't super excited at first to talk about it because what are we talking about?
I'd like to talk about John the Baptist.
Right. And now I need to back up and explain why I wasn't, because I don't want to do any disrespect to John the Baptist here. I want to make that very clear.
Might lose his head.
Oh, wow. We're going to have to edit that out. That's bad. That's
what?
Really
I love
bad.
him. I love him. Okay, keep going.
Oh, that's like the Abe Lincoln joke. Okay. Oh, we apologize. I'm so sorry. If this is your first experience with us, please don't judge us off of this one little 2-minute intro that you've had so far. But
my students are like, this is par for the course.
I know. So. They won't be surprised.
No.
But, okay, so the reason why I wasn't super excited to talk about John the Baptist is not really John the Baptist's fault. It's because of The Chosen. because I just don't, I love The Chosen. I actually really do.
So good.
I love when you nod as if our listeners can see you nodding.
I'm just feeling it. I feel The Chosen. I love it.
Oh man, you are on one today.
Just happy to be here.
Yes, clearly. But I don't love their depiction of John the Baptist or John the Baptizer, as they call him in the show, because they kind of paint him as like this crazy wild man who's just like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe him in a respectful way, honestly. I just don't like
wild, crazy man, yeah.
I just don't like their interpretation of his character, I guess.
I don't either. Especially, I kind of find it surprising. This isn't meant to be like a whole critique on Dallas Jenkins'
is actually a
choices.
critique of The Chosen. That is what we're talking about.
I think Dallas Jenkins has done amazing things with that series,
and really good.
It's brought a lot of people to Jesus, which again, we'll plug it. If you haven't watched it, you really should. There's so many wonderful things about it,
and not that it's pure gospel. And he even says that he says this is all. I mean, many artistic liberties are taken. Many. But I mean, that's interspersed with the Gospels as well so far. So it's, if anything, I think if you go with an open mind and just keep in mind that this is not like totally historically accurate, but it might open your mind to new ways of thinking about Jesus and his disciples and people who lived back then, because it's just too easy to read the scriptures, in the old King James English, and just feel like they're these static 2-dimensional characters on a page. And that's just not true. They were just
real people.
Not just like you and I are, obviously, but they were real people. They are just like us in every way. But they're human.
Yeah.
And so they had feelings, they had emotions, they had personalities,
lives and families and jobs and concerns, anxieties.
So I do overall appreciate the series itself. I think is very eye-opening, and it just makes you look at things a new way, as I've said. But yeah, the John the Baptist depiction, not my favorite.
Me too. If I had a major critique, like that would be it, is John the Baptist. Because especially because Jesus himself, I mean, Dallas Jenkins does a pretty good job of looking at what's in the scriptures, but Jesus himself said some pretty amazing things about John the Baptist. I'll just point out 2 of them. The first one being from Matthew chapter 11, when it says this. It says, "And as they departed, Jesus began to say unto the multitudes concerning John, What went ye out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken with the wind? But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they wear soft clothing in the king's houses. But what went ye out for to see? A prophet? Yea, I say unto you, and more than a prophet. For this is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy way before thee. And then he says this about John, Verily I say unto you, among them that are born of women, which is everybody, among them that are born of women, there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist. I love that. Among them that are born of women, there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist. In other words, the way I read that is that besides probably Jesus himself, John the Baptist is one of probably the best men that's ever lived on this earth, which is incredible. He also says in John chapter 5, verse 35, that John was a burning and shining light, and ye were willing for a season to rejoice in his light. I just love that. John was a burning and shining light, and among those that are born of women, there's none greater than John the Baptist. A few episodes ago, we talked about Mary and how wonderful, like the best, right? Just incredible. I feel like we have to also talk about John. If Mary's, I mean, her example is for men and women, but especially I would say for women. And if you're talking, okay, who's like someone that I could look to, especially as a priesthood holder, that's like the example besides Jesus, obviously, then I'm going to take Jesus' own words and say there's none greater than John. I mean, he was the one who restored the priesthood. Then we should be looking to him, right?
Well, and let me add to what you said there. I mean, that doesn't get much better than having Jesus say that there was nobody better than you who's been born, right?
It's awesome. Yeah.
But I love the Bible dictionary entry on John the Baptist. Also, in adding to that scripture, it says, this greatness consisted of his unique privileges and the quality of his work. He alone was entrusted with the mission of preparing the way and baptizing the Savior of the world. He, quote, did no miracle, unquote, from John 10:41, but magnificently fulfilled his assignment in bearing testimony of Jesus Christ. I think that's awesome. That it wasn't that John had any sort of superpower. I love that it says he did nothing. He did no miracles. He wasn't like Jesus going around, or even Jesus' disciples going around and healing people all the time. It was just, he prepared the way for Jesus. And that is something, I know I'm spoiling the whole point of this episode, but that is something that all of us can do.
Yeah. Well, and again, what's young men listening in your teenage years, in your 20s, or anybody listening, as a priesthood holder, what made him so great, right? Like what made him great among men, among women, among everybody, the greatest? That's a huge part of it, is that he was preparing the way by his own testimony. And yeah, I know the chosen likes to play up the whole wild, and he's like the scriptures say, he lived in the wilderness, he wore rough clothing, ate locusts and honey. And I just, in my mind, see like the manliest of men just living out there on the land, because he doesn't have time to stop. He's got to keep going. And maybe his clothes aren't the best. Maybe he's eating locusts and honey, because he has a mission to do. And that is, like Allie said, I've got to bear witness while I can, because Jesus is coming, which, by the way, John the Baptist, if you think about this, came before Jesus' first coming. Who is he sent before his second coming? It's us. Who else is it? We are here to prepare the way for Jesus to come again. And it's not going to be in some new, different way. It's going to be the same way that John prepared for him to come the first time, which a lot of that was, I'm on a mission. I don't have time to stop. Maybe I'm going to be eating locusts and honey, but I'm going to be bearing testimony. Maybe not performing miracles and healing people, but my witness will be paving the way for him to come.
That's great. And a lot of this comes from the fact that this week in our Sunday school reading assignment for Come Follow Me, that's the name of, if you're just tuning in, you have no idea who we are, what we do. Come Follow Me is the name of our manual that we use in our church Sunday school. And so this year we're doing the New Testament, and this week's reading is John chapter 1. And it's the famous one, like, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And it talks all about the coming of Jesus. And then it shifts and it says there was a man sent from God whose name was John the Baptist in this case. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. And then verse 8 is one that really popped out to both of us. He, meaning John the Baptist, was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. And for me, the way that I see this, I'm far be it for me to tell you how you should interpret scripture, how you should look at it. But when I read that, two things come to mind for me. that he was not that light, he was sent to bear witness of that light, means to me, like, okay, so if I am the type of person who's like nervous to share my testimony or to get out there and talk about the gospel with anyone because I'm so self-conscious or I'm so aware of my own shortcomings that I think I am not even qualified. I mean, and you know what? I do feel this way, in case you didn't know that. Like, I feel this all the time, that I'm so aware of my faults and my flaws that I think, well, who am I to like claim to be a witness of Jesus Christ when it's so apparent that I just mess up all the time, you know? Like, okay, so for an example, this is a dumb thing, but
I've got one too.
I know, but just recently,
so many.
Jason and I were talking, and so like last week, I was having a really just rough day. Like, I'd gotten some disappointing news that, anyway, it was just, I am one of those people that I have a hard time like concealing my emotions, which I guess is good for Jason because
we're both bad at it.
He never has to guess what I'm feeling, and I can't hide it from him if I tried, because if I'm not feeling great or if something's bugging me, it's going to show on my face. And so I just so happened to be like picking up Mary from preschool after receiving this bad news and having this bad day. And so I was like really upset about stuff. And then I felt bad because like the other moms whom I don't know, because this is in a different neighborhood, different ward, I could tell like they were trying to like engage me in some small talk. And I realized that my answers were kind of short, and I wasn't meaning to be. I was totally not meaning to be rude or short with them or not engaging. But I realized after I had talked to them and I like rewound the scene in my brain, I'm like, you know what? I probably came off as a little cold in that conversation just because I had other things on my mind and I wasn't like in my game mode of let's interact with other humans and be pleasant to be around, you know? Like, yeah. It was, so I felt so bad because I'm like, boy, if I was those ladies, I would be kind of thinking to myself, like, okay, so she's not super friendly. And which made me feel bad because I'm like, that's not true. Like, let me do a do-over. That's not who I really am. You caught me on a bad day. But you know what I mean? It's stuff like that sticks out in my mind of several instances where I can look back and say, you know what? I did not show up as my best self in that moment. And I wish I could take it back. Did you want to share yours? You don't have to.
Yeah.
But while we're in the confessional mode.
I'm going to confess something too. So yeah, I do feel bad about this, but this is within the context of this, what we're talking about, John, and being a witness of him, right? And so last week we went to the Utah International Auto Expo, which we always do, which was kind of cool because of our work on the side with the automotive journalism industry. We were able to get in early, which was a lot of fun before the crowd's there and whatever. We went back later though, or was it that morning? It was that morning. Or was it the night?
It was that night because it was... No,
it was in the morning.
It was
it
in the
doesn't
morning,
matter.
And then we went back late.
That detail's irrelevant. But
this
anyway,
particular time was in the morning.
So I have a soft spot for Mazda Miatas because they're so fun. I'm a big believer in it's more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow.
This episode is not sponsored by Mazda.
Not sponsored, but that would be awesome if you're listening. So, so I would welcome it. But I love Miata. We owned an old Miata. I'm telling you more details. I just love it. Anyway, they had a nice, beautiful soul red.
Once upon a time.
Mazda Miata RF there, and I just had to sit in it because I just love them. And so we're sitting in the Miata, and this like really nice, friendly guy from Mazda approaches us like as soon as we sit down in the car, and he's like, "Can I help you with anything?" You know, doing his job. He's just doing his job. And I was pretty short, and I was just I was just like, nope. I said it like that too.
I was a little shocked. I'm like, oh, no, thank you.
I was embarrassed,
kind
and
sir.
I just like I wasn't in the mood to talk, and anyway, probably it's like Ron Swanson when he's in the Home Depot when he's just like, I know more than you. But no, I didn't think that, but I kind of did.
It wasn't that. I know how you think that came off, and it perhaps was a little more abrupt than you usually would have responded, but.
I felt like it was a little shorter.
We did talk with him a bit after that.
Yeah, we did. So we had a good conversation.
It wasn't like we said, no, go away,
yeah, and
peasant.
Cold shoulder peasant. No. But it was, and then I had this thought later, like, I should have been a little more kind in that interaction because you know what? Even though the guy was a total stranger and I'd never see him again, that interaction with him in the scheme of things was probably more important for me and for him. Maybe if we never remember it, even just for my character, than just looking at a cool car.
Right.
It's more important. Yeah. And I thought, what if he was listening to our podcast? What if he had heard it? I don't know, but it's like, I would hope that all of my interactions are pointing, like John, people to Jesus, not to me. I don't want people looking at me. I want people to be looking at him. And I'd hope even if it's in a Miata at the Auto Expo, that my interactions with somebody would shine the light, not on me, but shine the light, not even on the car, but shine the light on Jesus.
Right.
Shine the light on him.
Which, again, goes back to the verse 8, he was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. We can't be Jesus.
No.
Because we have already messed up. We've already made several mistakes and will continue to, right? But we can still point others to him.
Yeah.
So I appreciate John's example in that, because I would imagine John had his flaws as well. I mean, obviously he was not the savior of the world, so ergo, he probably had a few grumpy encounters with his fellow men as well.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe he was always pleasant all the time. But if I had to guess, like, John had his off days as well. But he still fulfilled that role and mission of preparing the way for the Savior. The second way that I read that verse, though, of he was pointing others to the light, was kind of like a warning to not be tempted to shine the light on yourself.
Yeah.
And from the scriptures, we call that priestcrafts, where you seek to maybe like set yourself up in the eyes of other people, and that they really look to you and admire you and in your power or talent or whatever it might be. And that's especially relevant in today's society, where we live in a time of influencers, and this is no knock against anyone who might be an influencer, of which we all are on some level,
no, it's
right?
Great. It's great. We hope we can be a good influence.
It's a great way. But but that is kind of the culture that we've created, is like, I need to get more likes. I need to get more subscribes. I need people to like me, and I need my image, my brand, or whatever to be all positive. And I just like that, if John was an influencer, it wouldn't be him talking all about himself on YouTube. He would be, hey, let's talk about Jesus today. How can we prepare the way for him? What about this? Blah, 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 blah. And that's, you and I have talked about how this is what we strive to do. Obviously, we're imperfect beings, but that is our goal with this podcast, is to always, always, always make it clear that the end goal is Jesus, so that when we inevitably say something on here, which I know we will or have, and that rubs you the wrong way, and we apologize if that has been the case, or if you took offense to the John losing his head joke, which is totally
I'm sorry.
Just kidding. But I mean, again, that's a silly example, but there may be things that we say offhand that might rub you the wrong way. We hope that doesn't distract from the overall message of, this is all about Jesus. Please, if you give up on us, don't give up on him. He's the light. We're just trying to point to him.
Well, I like what you said earlier. We were talking about this, and I don't want to jump in here if you're going to go here, but like Allie, we were talking earlier, and she's like, it's kind of cool to think of like so many of the early disciples, even apostles that were following Jesus, were first John's followers. And you brought up the point, I don't know if you want to say that, just like how it's not like John was like mad.
Hey, you stole some of my followers.
Exactly. No, like that's what I'm here for. And same with this podcast, or I mean, this Institute class that many of you have been attending has been incredible. And I'm so humbled that you show up and you hear my half-baked lessons. I work as hard as I can on it, but you guys really are amazing. But it's, if you stop coming because you're like, you know what, I've got my fill, like, I'm not offended, because I am just here to hopefully keep pointing you down the path.
He's not giving you an invitation to stop.
No, please don't. Yeah, please keep coming.
He
bring your
wants you to
friends.
come. Make that very clear.
It's the highlight of my week, and for Alice when she's able to come, like, it's just so cool to be with you. And you all listening that I know, and I believe everybody listening to this, are that light. Like, I'm not that light. And I just love also in John chapter 3, going along with this discussion, where it says this, John 3, verse 25, it says, "Then there arose a question between some of John's disciples and the Jews about purifying. And they come to John and they say, 'Rabbi, he that was with thee beyond Jordan, to whom thou bearest witness, behold, the same baptizeth, and all men come to him.' And John answered and said, 'A man can receive nothing except it be given him from heaven. Ye yourselves bear me witness that I said, I'm not the Christ, but that I am sent before him. He that hath the bride is the bridegroom, but the friend of the bridegroom, which standeth and heareth him, rejoiceth greatly because of the bridegroom's voice. This, my joy, therefore is fulfilled.'" Like, hearing his voice, right? And then he says this in verse 30, "Jesus must increase. He must increase, and I must decrease." Like, I would hope that we hope through this podcast and through the class and whatever else, that it's not like Jason and Allison are getting bigger in your life, or the Peace of Living podcast is bigger in your life. We hope that it's him that's increasing, and ourselves, each of us in this life, we are decreasing. As he takes up more space in our life, the natural man inside of us decreases. And that's just so cool. That's what John was here to do. Was prepare the way for him to take up more room in your life.
Well, and even on a smaller level, what a great example of humility.
Oh yeah.
And of, like, I don't know, graciousness. What do we want to call it? Again, in an age where comparisonitis is such a problem. And speaking as a woman, that this tends to be a common thing among women in particular, is there's this whole idea of competition, and like, if one woman's successes is somehow equivalent to another woman's failures, like, there's like this get ahead mentality. I'm not saying that I feel that or that my friends are that way. I'm very blessed that we're really not that way, thankfully. But I can definitely see that as a prevalent problem today, where that was even, again, plug for The Chosen. That was a topic that was brought up in The Chosen between Mary Magdalene and Tamar. And she even says something like, "I was comparing your strength to my weakness." Mm-hmm. And I think it's easy. It would have been easy for John the Baptist to feel like, oh, like, Jesus is so much better than I am. I'm never gonna. My cousin. Oh, my cousin this, my cousin that. Right. My cousin healed another person today, and I just baptized somebody. And like the ability to compare is definitely available to him. And yet, what does John do? It's not about him. He's like, of course, this is great. Go to Jesus, like this is the whole point. This is why I've been doing what I'm doing. And I feel like maybe in more of a microcosmic way for us, it's like, I don't need to be threatened by anyone else's accomplishments, because I should be like, that's wonderful. Like, that is a God-given gift that person has, and you should be happy for them, and I should be happy for them. That these are all good things. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally.
Like, rather than feel that someone else being good is evidence of us being not as good, that instead it just builds. We all build on each other. Which,
again, especially if you're a younger woman looking or listening to this and thinking like, who is the kind of guy I want to date and eventually marry? Just listen to what Allie just said.
Yes.
This is the kind of guy you want to date. Like, this is the example of a righteous priesthood holder.
Genuinely happy for other people, Christ-focused, not self-centered. Oh boy, I'm just going to say it. If you're dating somebody who is super self-centered and self-absorbed, you run. They're away right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if they are their own light, that is a big red flag.
And they always will be their own light. That's not going to change just because you get married. Like, that's the way it is. And like, speaking on that same topic, like, who's the kind of guy I want? Who's a righteous priesthood holder? Just look at some of the things like in Luke 1 that it lists off that describes John. I mean, look at in Luke 1 verse 14. This is talking to his dad, John the Baptist's dad, right? You'll have joy and gladness from him. Like, if you're dating somebody, does he bring you joy and gladness? Then date that guy, marry that guy. Like, the end of that verse in verse 14, many will rejoice at his birth. Like, the dude that you're dating, the dude that you're interested in, like, are your parents glad that he was even born? Do they feel that strongly about him? Right? I hope your parents feel that way about me.
Oh,
but it's like,
no,
but like, do people just rejoice when they hear like his name? Do people just light up and they'll be like, he is awesome. Like, I'm so glad that you're dating him. Have that kind of guy.
Absolutely.
Have that kind of guy. I mean, look at that. Verse 15, like, right again with what Ali was saying. He shall be great in the sight of the Lord. Like, everybody is loved by Jesus, but what makes a man especially great in the eyes of the Lord? It's everything we've been talking about. That's John. Well, he was great in his eyes, which
he did no miracle.
Yeah, and he was great. Like, the Lord, the Lord call the guy you're dating great? Right? Or the girl. This could go for anybody, right? I'm just, John anyway. But it's like, and this goes for everybody, but you just get the idea here. He's great in the eyes of the Lord, which I had another teacher point out to me that also could mean that he wasn't, like Ali was just saying, he wasn't necessarily great in his own eyes. He was great in Jesus's eyes, right? He didn't think too much of himself, which I think is a really cool thing. Another thing too that I just love from that, like in verse 16, like Ali was talking about, preparing the way, and many of the children of Israel shall he turn to the Lord their God. What about all the many people at the University of Utah? Do they turn people to the Lord? Does he or she turn people to the Lord by just how they live, by how they act, by just their words and their deeds? Are they turning people to the Lord? This is what John did. This is what made him so great. This is what made him the best of those born among women, right? Many of the children of whoever, of wherever, he turned to the Lord, right? Not anywhere. And you think of the idea of turning. It's like, if you're turning somebody, it's like they're walking down this path. I'm just going to come up with you and give you a little turn, put my arm around your shoulder and just turn you this way, right? Turn you back to Jesus. And then verse 17, right? He's going to go and make ready a people prepared for the Lord. Like, find that guy, find that girl that is like, you know what? Like, we just got to make people ready. And just like, not by like, shoving religion down somebody's throat, but just by how they're living. Like, wouldn't that be amazing for when Jesus comes again, for your friend, your family, your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, to be like, and I feel this way about Ali, like, I know that I am more ready for him to come because of her influence on me. And wouldn't that be so cool to have that person come up to you and be like, thank you. Like, because of you, I was more ready for him to come. I was used to kind of like what it would be like for him to be here because you are here.
That's such a cool thing.
Isn't that cool to think about? Now, I do want to hit on one more, and this is probably my favorite one from Luke chapter 1. And I'm going to fast forward to the end there, down in 79 and 80, especially in verse 79. Oh my gosh, I think even just this one verse makes John. And again, come on, Chosen, like, you got to show this, because in verse 79, this is just who John was. He gave light, to give light to them that sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. That's John. Among those that are born of women, there's none greater than him, because that guy, I can count on him to bring light to those that sit in darkness. And I mean, I remember students in the past that have just been super shy, super full of anxiety, never talked to anybody. And yet there might be just one or two people at their school that just learn their name and they say hi to them. That's it. And little do they know that person, that boy or that girl, is sitting in darkness, maybe even in the shadow of death. And yet that person, by saying their name and saying hi and asking how they're doing, brought light to them that sat in darkness. That is the guy you date. That's the guy or girl you marry.
That's the kind of person that you want to be.
That's the kind of person you want to be. Exactly. What makes John great, the best among women that's ever been born, right? I think that's probably a huge part of it. How do we prepare people for Jesus to come? A big way is just going to be given that light, his light, Jesus's light, to the sit in darkness.
Amen. I again, it goes back to the the Matthew 5, right? Like, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father, which is in heaven.
Yeah.
So if I'm thinking so much about Allison, then it's going to be harder for me to shine my light. But if I'm thinking, hey, I feel that God can work through me I want to share his love with other people that I'm around. Those are the times when I've had the most confidence to shine my light, because it's shining from the true source, which is Jesus, right? I am not the light. He is the light. So if I can shine his light, then that is what's going to make a difference in the lives of those around me. But I have to have that mindset of, it's not about me.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to kind of finish kind of one of the first things we started, like it does say again in John 5 that John was a burning and shining light.
I love that.
And we can be that bright and shining light for people. Not that because we are light, but because we've hopefully brought Jesus's light into our life, and it's being reflected to others.
That's a good clarification, because I don't want to suggest
he was a light.
I don't want to suggest that we don't have a light, each of us. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like what you said, that it is amplified by adding to that the true source of light, I guess.
Yeah. And so our hope is that with this discussion that, John the Baptist, Mary, there's so many wonderful examples from the scriptures, but when we look at like who are some models to follow, it's tough to top Mary and John the Baptist in my mind. And
that's all you need.
Yeah. And Jesus. Jesus, right. But
as far as like normal
who can I look
beings.
to? Who can I look to as like an example or as a model? And they're right up there. And so our hope is that through striving to be like Jesus, we can also be like John and Mary and, be all of those things, be a light to shine in darkness, be someone that brings joy and gladness into the world, and that people rejoice that was even born, right? And by doing so, I mean, that's not like a self-focused thing or a locally focused thing. This is a global thing. Those small actions, if taken by everybody, by covenant especially, that's the stuff that prepares the world. Again, John the Baptist came before Jesus' first coming. We collectively are here before his second coming. And how do we prepare the world for him to come? It's the same stuff that John did. And so let's go out and do it.
Well said.
Guys, thanks for listening. We love you so much. Thanks for listening, obviously, but also sharing and subscribing. And so please be brave, take a second, share this thing on social media, and let's just get more of his peace and his joy out into the world, and let's prepare the world for him to come again. Nick, till next time, we'll see ya.
Thank you. See ya.